Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome back to a new season of WOR PC Tier 2. Of course, the only PC tier that's available for viewing this season. And we're here for season 23, where new rule stipulations, like we've saw on previous game titles, rule the roost once more. My name is Max Ring. I'll be taking you through all the action this evening, alongside a familiar face here in the PC Tier 2 commentary box, Corey Brooks. How are you, Corey, on this Monday evening?
Excited, ready to rock and roll. I haven't been here since season 20 in this sort of scenario. It's a mystery season. Not only that, hard compound tyres are banned just like they were 3 seasons ago. So this is where things get interesting, a little bit spicy and dicey, because the hard compound tyre have proved crucial in strategies in a lot of these races. So I'm ready to rock and roll and see how we go for what will be a mighty fine race here in Sakir, Bahrain. That's where we're going for this mystery track.
Yes, it is. We are heading to the Bahrain International Circuit. And without the hard tyres, that could be quite a few pit stops coming the way for our drivers this evening. Of course, the hard is the best tyre when it comes to the race trim. Everyone says it on this game, and banning that, it's going to throw a lot of things up in the air, and these drivers will not have any time to refine their setups or even try and get the strategy to a T, because they do not know what is coming in that week. And quickly, before we head trackside, as the drivers are just loading in to the qualifying session. Of course, if you're new here, it is a 18-minute qualifying session to decide the grid, and then a 50% race around each circuit. But quickly over to the calendar. As you can see, every week is a mystery, but we know this evening we head to Bahrain, and the track selection for this season is Abu Dhabi, Austria, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Belgium, Brazil, Imola, China, Hungary, Mexico, Monaco, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Spain, and finally ending it off with Texas in the United States. A lot of circuits, Corey, we don't see often in a WR season. A lot of circuits that are returning from previous seasons, and the familiar ones, of course, being the likes of Belgium and Brazil. They're always on the calendar. But with, of course, this new stipulation of the hard tyres being removed, it's like they're going to be doing a whole new race all over again, even though they've done countless hours on these circuits.
Absolutely, the strategies are just thrown up into the air. Nobody knows when to box, where to box, or what tyre to use at the time. It's going to be absolute chaos and carnage out there as they try to get to terms on how long they can run the soft compounded tyre, especially on a track as hot as Bahrain. 3 to 4 laps in, they're going to be feeling pretty grim and a little bit slidey, so you've got to preserve them as best you can, because the mediums as well, they're not going to last much longer. Everybody relies on the hard compounded tyre here on this circuit, and they are absolutely out of the window, sent back to the factory. You're not using them tonight.
No, they certainly will not. And of course, it does play a few games into qualifying, saving those sets of softs. And talking about qualifying, let's head track side now here with Dennis Langrock, who's the first driver out onto the circuit. Of course, with only mediums and softs available, I'm expecting a lot of these drivers to either use the softer tyre format or the balanced one, so you get an extra set of the medium compound. But it also does add that strategy into the qualifying as well, doesn't it, Corey? So it already begins the race in qualifying, because if you use up too many sets of your softs, you're going to be a sitting duck potentially come the end or even the beginning of the race, where everyone else could be potentially on a fresh set.
Absolutely, that goes to that question of strategy, but we are very lucky because this time in this season, you've got a lobby restart. They can burn all these tyres, they'll get a fresh set in the race. So that's something these drivers will think about quite closely, because, again, push the limits on the soft, get to terms of how much they can handle here in qualifying, really come to terms with the abuse that that rubber can take, and that will help you in the race. They've not had time to practice. This is that mystery season. So you're just thrown into the deep end. 5 minutes before we go live, before the race even happens, the drivers get told, this is where you're going, and unless they are prepared for every eventuality, some drivers will be caught out tonight.
Yes, they certainly could, as Lanrock now makes his way into turn 10, goes a little bit wide from the apex. They're just looking up that inside front, and actually removed my whole point of the strategy starting in qualifying. Everyone's probably got to burn through 4 sets of the soft compound tyres, or whatever you can burn around certain circuits. But it is just going to be such an interesting season ahead. And for Dennis Lanrock, he's going to set the benchmark of the season if he's going to be able to keep this one clean for the remainder of the lap, heading down now into turns 14 and 15, the 2 final corners of the circuit. Into 14, down to 3rd gear, bring the car out to the left, and 15, that little kink on the exit of the corner. And the benchmark for the season, the opening lap of the season's completed, a 1 minute 26.591 from Lanrock, and we have no idea how good that is compared to everyone else's. Baster falls around 3/10 short of the Mercedes man.
Now, not too shabby of a lap from Lanrock indeed to set that initial time that everybody's chasing down, trying to beat. We have Claudio Diaz in the 27.2s with Enzo Sabaton 27.7 before Aaron Ramirez jumps up into that 26 time, followed by JST just falling a 10 short of that 26 time. He's on the cusp with a 27.073. So far, drivers hitting that checkered flag, getting those bankers out of the way, and as I mentioned, they're trying to come to terms with how much they can push this soft compound tyre. And I mean, as well, some of them are driving a little bit slower. Maybe this is testing those limits. How many laps can you do before they feel grim? You see Enzo with that 27.7 time, a full 1.5 seconds off the pace, as Cameron Dowds goes quicker with a 26.2, setting the fastest lap of the session in your round 1 of this mystery season.
Yeah, nicely done there from Cameron Dowds, going 3/10 clear of Dennis Lanrock. Leo Lund has invalidated his lap time. Of course, he was quite strong in the last time we did a mystery season, and London 26.8. That would have put him around about 3rd fastest. So a good opening lap time there, but he's going for it once more. That was Alpha Sniper up into 5th place there. Nicely done from him. 26.9, a big field spread at the moment. With the car now heading up into 4th place. Shontos to 2nd. He's still 2/10 shy though of Cameron Dowds. A spectacular lap time from the young Scot so far. No one seeming to come close or to even match it so far. And for Cameron Dowds, he's setting the pace early on, as the only 2 drivers left on laps at the moment are Marcel Paps and Leo Lund. But they're very close to each other on the circuit, so I wouldn't be surprised if Leo's getting a little bit of dirty air, and that could affect his next attempt, as he's on the same set of tyres he started the session with.
I think Leo is more thinking of an in-lap. I mean, he's pushing hard. He's still got that battery going and still trying to gain some time here. A little bit of a wobble there coming out of turn 11, trying to get the power down to swing you back around turn 12. You need to get on that throttle fast and quick, because it really sets you up for your 3rd sector. And as he comes down the final straight, it's an invalidation, so no time for Leo Lund. But for Marcel Pabst, what sort of time will we see on that board? This is certainly going to be a valid lap. He comes out of 14 now, power down out of 15. What little of the battery he has left before he opens the rear wing, and it's only good enough for P8, but he's just on the cusp of that 26 time with his teammate Kilkenny.
Yeah, they're just teetering on the edge of that 1 minute 26. Of course, Enzo Sabaton the slowest so far on a 27.7. And of course, Bahrain's not a circuit that's featured often in the league racing calendar. I don't think I've actually done any commentary on it for quite some time. Here, Corey. So a lot of these drivers' setups could potentially be outdated, unless some of them have done potentially a different league, or even done their own little fun races in their background, because it's just a circuit that, of course, with the turn 4 bump that has been fixed now, it was removed from every calendar. So not many drivers would have done any laps at all around this circuit, and that's where those setup differences come into play. Because if you have a setup, say, from May last year, June last year, because you've not done it since, you're going to be on the back foot, because that's going to be severely outdated, and it's going to be seconds off the pace, and that could be what we're seeing for the likes of Isaac Lee, Enzo Sabaton, and even Ranieri being so far behind at the moment.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more about those updated setups. The drivers are constantly tweaking them to find the right balance between performance and tyre saving, because it's all about strategy in this game. The dirtier demolishes those tyres, they find it difficult to find overtaking opportunities. So when the opportunity comes, they need to make sure that the tyre is ready to rock and roll. So those fine little adjustments and tweaks that they've made to all the tracks over the past seasons have not happened here in Bahrain. You haven't seen it ran throughout the past season. Has been removed from that bump in turn 4. So the drivers are just getting to grips with these little subtle changes that need to be made to their setups in this session. I believe if they have park firmware off, they can make those subtle adjustments just to figure out the balance better, because you see the gap in the field, 1.5 seconds in qualifying. That is unknown in a Tier 2 qualifying for quite a while, so the drivers have really been caught off guard with this one.
They certainly have, as Jerry Van Bussel goes up into 8th fastest. He breaks into the 1:26s. And yeah, this is one of the biggest field spreads I have seen in quite some time in any tier, because of course, this mystery format. These drivers have no time to practice. It is all guns blazing as soon as you find out that circuit. And you've really got to pray it's a circuit you do have a recent setup around and that you've done a lot of laps on. So for Basner, as he's now heading into turn 11 and up the hill for 12 and 13. Of course, 12 is flat out free. You don't really worry about this. It's just about setting yourself up for 13. He's down in the middle sector by 14 thousandths of a second. Is the Ferrari driver not finding an improvement so far is the German to displace fellow German Dennis Langrock for that 3rd place. Late on the brakes into the final 2 corners low as you exit out in 4th gear. Use all the battery as you come to the line. DRS opening very briefly. Across the line he goes. Found 3 tenths in the final sector. Just puts himself in front of Langrock, who himself is up by nearly a 10.5 in the middle sector.
Yeah, coming out of the final corner now, flat to the floor, and away we go. Is going to open that rear wing and burn what little of that battery is left. Is the improvement to hit the line? Yes, it is. It's a 26.3, still a 10.5 shy of Cameron Dowds. There's a blistering lap from Dowds on that banker. Still nobody unable to dethrone him.
Yeah, no one able to come anywhere near Dowds thus far. Raminguez is on the lap. He's up by 3 tenths of a second, goes 5th fastest. Lost a bit of time in that final part of the lap. Is that Kokeni just starting a lap? Yes, it is. That's Tony Atala, who now goes up into 6th place, just behind Aaron Raminguez. Pushes Ryan Bakar a little bit further down the order. Next, we have one of the McLaren's line. That's going to be on a outlap. I think Cameron Dowd's also on an outlap. Yes, he is. So he potentially could see a lap time here from Ryan Bakar, actually, if we look down at the V-car. Let's see how his progress is tracking. 2 tenths up in that 1st sector. Could we see the 2nd V-car maybe stoop to the top of the times, or at least the front row of the grid?
Claudio Diaz towards the line, 0.5 second improvement. Blistering lap there to get up behind his teammate, up into P6. That is much needed for that Alpine driver to get up there in the fight and in the fray, finding 0.5 second there.
Yeah, lovely stuff there from Diaz, matching his teammate. Of course, you want to beat your teammate, and Diaz is matching him. Just missing out ever so slightly. Picar's up by 4 tenths of a second here, so he potentially now could see himself onto that front row of the grid. Late on the brakes into the final corner. Oh, a little bit of a snap as he exits out of turn 14. As he makes his way to the line, might have just cost him the front row of the grid. No, it has not, but potentially cost him for fighting with his teammate. But it's a V-Carb 1-2 as it currently stands. Cameron Dowds is still up on his previous best. Of course, track evolution going to come into play as this qualifying session continues. So it'll be interesting to see what Dowds does in the middle sector, and he's up by nearly a further 2 tenths. Corey, could we see our first driver into the 1:35s? But there's a little bit of a wide exit out of 13, and that will compromise his run into the final 2 corners.
As we go out of the final and penultimate corner we go. This is it for Cameron Dowds, the improvement that is to come. The lap that may be or never will be as he hits that checkered flag. What is it to be? 26.177. Beautiful lap time indeed to go ever further ahead of his current teammate Bakar. He's just absolutely untouchable here in Bahrain.
He certainly is. As Leo Lund puts himself 3rd fastest, close for that battle for 2nd at the moment between Langrock, Bakar And Shontos now goes up into second place. I was going to say Shontos in that fight as well. And he's just put himself a little bit further clear. He split that V-carb 1-2. And Shontos on his return to the tier, certainly showing himself as a threat for this at least first pole position of the season. Marcel Paps puts himself up into 6th place. It's a nice lap time there from Marcel as he's just about 2 attempts shy of Dennis Langrock, so he's found a little bit more time on these next few runs if he wants any chance of battling for that top 5. But from Shontos down to Langrock here, Corey, just over a tenth separating those 4 cars. It's going to be close for this front row of the grid, but I think at the moment, Dowd has done enough to at least maybe put one hand on this pole position.
Yeah, he's absolute blistering pace to just stay ahead of the field from banker to second run, and the rest of the field just trying to catch up to the freight. Like you say, P2 down to P5 within a tenth of a second. Things are going to get interesting though. Just really pushing the limits of the car to find those extra tenths every hundredth and every thousandth of a second, because that is what it's going to come down to here in this qualifying session. We're getting a little bit spicy for some drivers just now. Back into the pits, waiting it out. Marcel Paps is pushing hard, see if there's any improvement to come his way as we get going to start his sector 3 now.
Yeah, of course, perhaps just backing off ever so slightly.
Oh no, he backed out there. Yeah.
To 6th. Is Sabaton potentially pushing round on a lap? It does actually seem so. So Enzo Sabaton could be going for an improvement here. Currently on a 27.7, 7 tenths shy of the rest of the field. But no, elects to come into pit lane. Will go for that one extra run and potentially just use that to gather a bit more data and a feel for the car. But now we're into that lull stage here, Corey, where the driver's just prepared to get ready. I'm expecting them out of the pit lane around about now. I say that. I think that is JSD just coming out of his pit box for Ferrari. He's currently down in 18th place. But with the what is a good thing about this session now is everybody's into those 26s. Yes, Cameron Dowds has cemented an early stronghold onto this session. As we mentioned, could potentially have put one hand on that pole position. But what makes this so special is that someone could make that right little tweak to the setup and then instantly they could be the first driver into the 25s, come from absolutely nowhere and snatch that pole position away from the Scots' grasp.
Well, it only takes a few good corners. You have one absolute perfect sector, and for the likes of Santos and Bakar, if they can just match their other sectors, they could maybe find those 2 tenths to jump ahead of Cameron Dowds as he tries to find ever more pace. He's on his outlap. He's going to pump that temperature into the tyre. So even Dowds, being as quick as he has for his first 2 runs, does not feel safe with that 26.1. He's going one more time to see if there's any more time in this lap that can help secure the pole position here for round 1 in the season 23 mystery season.
Yep, here we are then, the end to the first qualifying session of the season. And at the moment it's Dowds who has a stranglehold on that pole position ever since he completed that first qualifying lap. But we still have all these other drivers looking to try and take that away from him, especially from the likes of Shontos, Bakar, Lund and Langrock. They're the real threats to Cameron Dowd's pole position. But it's going to be Tony Hitala. He'll get us underway here in Bahrain and the Bahrain International Circuit. The end to qualifying begins now. No more redos, no more go-agains. It's all about this. You can't use any more sets of tyres. If you invalidate, it's game over. So Corey, take us away with Tony Hitala.
Atala coming down into the braking zone, slamming onto it, fire round to the right, not too much apex, you don't want to unsettle it for turn 2, as you come back over, try and straighten the car out as best you can to get the power down out of 3, and open that rear wing to maximise the top speed before you're on the brakes ever so gently, flick it round the right hander at turn 4, that nasty bump well and truly gone and demolished before sector 1, he's done and dusted, a 10th improvement so far for Hatala, so he's already looking to improve on positions, has a little bit of a wobble there coming down out of 6 and 7, but he's collected back around turn 8. And as we come down to the famous 9 and 10, where Alonso pulled off that amazing overtake all those seasons ago when we first introduced the ground effect era of car, Hatala deals with it nice and bonny, gets flat to the floor, the rear wing is open once again before we come to the fast 11 and 12 to finish off Sector 2.
Yep, Tony Hatala, he's trying to see some form of improvement down in 14th place. What are we looking like in the middle sector? Found 3/10 of a second. What about Cameron Dowds behind him, who's down in the first? Is he down in the middle? No, he's up by half a temp, so he needs to look out for Cameron Dowds as well, who invalidates through 13. The rear of the car got a little bit wayward, tried picking it up before he went off the circuit, but could not do so. So that's it from Dowds. It's now looking at everybody else behind. It's harder to the line. He goes 6th fastest. That's the best he can do. What about JSD, who's now making his way to the start-finish line? Is this enough to see himself into the top 10? Yes, it is. 9th fastest from him, but still plenty of drivers still to go. Bakar improving in the first sector. Shontos up by a 10th in the middle. Is this enough to displace Dowds, who's had a grasp on that pole? It is! He finds nearly 2/10 of a second on his previous best. Leo Lund to the line. What's this going to be? His 3rd fastest for him. Dennis Lanrock is down in the middle sector. Ryan Bakar, is he still finding that improvement in the middle part of the lap as well? Shontos has brutally taken it away from Dowds at the moment. Bakar at the moment not responding to Shontos at all. So potentially for the Hungarian, a dream return to PC Tier 2. And Ryan Bakar through the final corner, a little bit hesitant, chucking it in as Alpha Sniper goes 5th. A wobble for Bakar out the final corner. Doesn't see any form of improvement. And it is going to be Gabor Shontos unless Marcel Paps can do something, as he's up by a 10th. Rennie Ailey up into 3rd. That's a big improvement from the McLaren driver. And Marcel Paps, the last one to cross the line. Where does he go? And I think that is 7th fastest for Marcel Paps. It is 7th fastest for Marcel Paps. But after Dowds dominated that early part of the session here, Corey, it's the Hungarian of Gabor Shontos who comes out on top.
Wow, when it was needed most, Shontos delivers and just beats Cameron Dowds by 0.08 of a second. Dowds was so dominant in the opening stages, and just like that, he's been done and dusted. Only take a couple of corners and Shontos found it. For Cameron Dowds in P2, Renele, Leo Lund, Bakar, Alpha Sniper, Marcel Paps, Lucas Baisner, Dennis Lanrock and Jezelar complete your top 10 in qualifying.
That was a very frantic qualifying session. We'll run you through the rest of the grid in a moment. But for Gabor Shontos, a dream return here to PC Tier 2. Exactly what he needed. After we run you through the, of course, grid order, we'll quickly head to a short intermission to get this lobby restart underway. If Abe Gabadi cannot get into the lobby, we'll have Nal Gio taking over his place. He'll, of course, will be starting from the back of the pack. And it'll be interesting to see how either of those drivers, depending on who gets in, is able to maybe progress their way up through the field with this unique format. But as we quickly... So I tried to bring up the grid. It's not letting me do so thus far. The rest of the grid was Jesla, Hitala, Diaz, Jerry Van Bussel, SD, Holmes, Sabaton, Alou, and then it was Raminguez and Co Kenny. But we're going to head to a quick intermission and we'll get this lobby restart underway. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bahrain International Circuit. Here, of course, in Sakir, and it's going to be a very interesting race ahead. Of course, strategies from old are thrown out the window. No hard tyres are allowed. It is, of course, still a one-stop if you can make it. But with only the mediums and softs available, I don't see that happening. Of course, you have to run both sets of tyres as well to make sure you fill the mandatory 2 different sets of tyres rule in the F1 game. So, Corey, it's going to be interesting. I'm just excited to see how these drivers adapt to the challenge, where some of them may not have the experience like others from previous seasons.
Absolutely. So starting tyre, crucial. Do they go for the mediums first, swap for the soft compounded tyre for a brief little stint and back to those mediums, or do they just brave it on the softs out of the gate, try and gain as many positions as possibly can, and then hold it out on those medium tyres? The hards banned, you are not using those. This is where things are going to get interesting. You're going to see some unorthodox pit stop strategies here, almost guaranteed a 2-stop, with the fact that you have to use the softs, and the softs don't even last more than 5 to 6 laps with the pace that these drivers can bring to the track. So keep your eyes peeled. This is going to get interesting and spicy very quickly, and that is something I can guarantee.
Yes, it is something we can guarantee. Strategies are going to be all over the place. So some drivers may box 1 lap and it could be the way to go. Some may stay out 3 to 4 laps longer, and that could be the right option. But we're about to get underway for the first race of the season. It's Santos and Dowds on the front row of the grid. It's 5 red lights, and we're underway here in Bahrain. It's a good start from Santos off the front row of the grid. Dowds has bogged down ever so slightly as we make our way into that first quarter, trying to look for a lunge to the inside line, actually being attacked by his teammate Bakar, who's gone round the outside of not only Leo Lund, but also Pasquale Ranieri as well, who's had a really poor start in that McLaren for now. As we make our way up into turn 4, Santos still leads. That's Lund with a dive bomb to the inside on Ryan Bakar, and Ranieri says thank you very much, I'll get past the pair of you. Spectacular stuff in the opening lap as Bakar goes off down at turn 5. He's somehow been able to control the car and be able to collect it, but he's fallen all the way down into 11th place after that frantic collision there with Leo Lund. Basler and Claudio Diaz now going side by side. Diaz with the goal up and under Alonso from 23-esque, but he's not able to get the move done there, as Dennis Langrock is potentially going to try put some pressure onto him as we head down into turn 11. He's going to try look for the lunge, but not going to be close enough. Let's bring up the tyres that everybody will want to see. That's the wrong thing. It's softs for everyone but Langrock, Esti, Alu, Raminguez. They're all on the mediums, so everybody looking to go very racy to begin with. But for Ryan Bakar, a disastrous start here, Corey, down to 12th.
Absolute disaster for Bakar off the start there. Things were getting a little bit hot for WOR between Scott Holmes and Sabaton. Sabaton was trying to challenge though, coming into Sector 3, but Scott Holmes has been able to maintain that position further to the front. We have Marcel Paps moving all the way off that line, staying well and truly clear out of that dirty air, trying to make these softs last a little bit longer. Leo Lund's going to try and send one up on his teammate Pascal, and nearly contact and completely unsettled that McLaren. Now he's got Alpha Sniper all over that rear diffuser, maybe within a chance to try and overtake Leo Lund after that bull brave manoeuvre on his own teammate. But as you can see here, Team Papaya rules are not a factor for these McLaren boys.
No, they certainly are not, and disaster at the front of the field for Cameron Dowds at the moment. Oh, Santos was just a second away from this striking pink V-Carb, but he's just been able to fight and claw himself back into it. It's now Bakar. His teammate squabbles away with Dennis Langrock round the outside. Through turns 9 and 10 we go with the V-Carb. Actually, some contact made between Langrock and Diaz, and that's now allowed Isaac leap past on the Mercedes man as well. So dropping 2 places out of 1 corner. He went late on the brakes, did Langrock, and it did not work in his favour. But of course, for these drivers on the mediums here, Corey, it's going to be a very agonisingly long start to this one before they can start to make their way up through the field, because those softs need to die off. They will in the next few laps, and that's when they can make hay and just push themselves further up the order.
Absolutely. The medium runners have tried to go for that alternate strat. Everybody else on the soft compounds, majority of the grid that you see here on that red wall attire, those medium runners just need to stay out of trouble, not battle too hard, try and preserve the rubber so that they can go full push when these softs start to die. Leo Lund once again fighting away with his teammates, now looking for an inside line, but he's switching to the outside as Pascal Arenelli's defending it like his life depends on it. Alpha Sniper looking for the toe and the slipstream up Leo Lund's rear diffuser to try and pick up any sort of capitalistic move on this ensuing battle ahead of him. Does not. Leo Lund does take the position. Pascal Arenelli is forced to sit behind and wait, and Alpha Sniper did not reap any benefits from that one.
No, he certainly did not. Lund able to finally get back by his team out after that beautiful double overtake that Ranieri did both on Lund and Bakar in that opening tour. But 2 laps later, at the exact same corner, his Papaya teammate sees himself up into 3rd place. Cameron Dowd still struggling at the moment to make his way through. Bakar's actually made his way past another car at the moment. That's of Claudio Diaz. He's actually going to look to the inside into 11, but no, backside of it is not risking a lunge into a corner where you could potentially go for an overtake in turn 11, but it's not really done because it's not too much of a heavy braking zone, and you compromise your run all the way through 12 and 13. But for Gabor Xontos here, it must be nice to know that you're able to get so far in front here, Corey, but it must be just so hard seeing you get up to that 1 second, and then by the time you reach the detection zone, it's only a few hundredths from breaking that DRS. So something's happened to Bakar in the background. He's actually come into pit lane.
Oh, Ryan Bakar maybe picking up some end plate damage or something. I didn't see any obvious signs of dismay on his V-carb, but he has come into the pits. He's choosing to swap the tyres, so maybe this is strategy-based. He's run a few laps on the soft, doesn't like it, doesn't like how they feel. It's disastrous for his setup, goes onto the medium compounder tyres. But all that squabbling between the Bakar and Giro have made things a little bit easier for Santos and Cameron Dowds for these opening few laps. They've not had to worry too much from the threat from behind, but now Leo Lund has used that DRS to catch up a little bit, but Cameron Dowd still with a decent gap of breathing space and under no threats whatsoever. This is beautiful for the front two, just trying to preserve those tyres a little bit longer. They've not had to fight and squabble too hard. It's Leo Lund and Ranelli that are going to struggle in a couple of laps' time.
Yes, say that once again. Dowd's dropped out of DRS range, and it could be potentially out of 13 where we see that DRS be dropped here from Gabor Xontos to Cameron Dowds, but he has been able to claw back a little bit of time. So potentially through those S sections, Dowds is the quicker car, maybe running a bit more downforce onto that V-carb. And it's actually allowed him to pull away from Leo Lund as well. But for Cameron Dowds, 7 tenths behind Gabor Xontos. And then just looking at it in the final corner, Xontos is able to find a 10th of a second over Cameron Dowd. So this gap will constantly keep ebbing and flowing as this race continues and this long straight. I think this back-to-back DRS zone here, Corey, is really what's keeping Dowds in play, because it allows Xontos to not have that breathing room to break 4 tenths of a second, 5 tenths of a second up the road and break that DRS, because Dowd has that drag reduction system twice as SD picks up our first 3-second time penalty of the race and of the season.
Yeah, just keeping my eye on these gaps between Xontos and Dowd. You see the Cameron Dowds that he's starting to claw back a little bit of time in those S sections, as you mentioned, maybe just running that little bit more downforce. But as we get going into some of the harsher braking zones, Santos seems to have the upper hand there. As we come down into 9 and 10, you see the gap open up a little bit more. On the exit of 10, it opens up again. So Santos, easier on the brakes, quicker on the throttle, is able to just navigate these corners a bit better, as Cameron Dowd is relying on that middle sector to find some time back.
Yeah, he certainly is. It's just maybe Dowd is potentially protecting his tyres as well, so maybe not pushing as hard. But for Xontos, I think he's also still got a full pack of battery to himself. He's actually used some over the past couple of laps. But it's really just this cat and mouse sort of start to this one. You push and then you somewhat back off a little bit. You allow your tyres to cool down. Just try and take these softs as long as possible. And then you keep doing that same process. You push for a couple laps, back off, push, back off, push. And that's potentially where we're seeing that gap open up between Dowds and Shontos, because they're doing it at different times. They're alternating who's pushing and who's backing off. As you can see, Dowds is now really starting to get close to Gabor Shontos, so maybe now Shontos is in that saving stage, whereas Dowds is now in that pushing stage. So it's going to constantly ebb and flow this gap, and the Haas driver might have to start looking in his mirrors ever so shortly.
Well, as he was coming out of turn 4 there, a sort of a slight slide from Santos there. Kept it nice and bonny and calm and collected, not running too wide outside of those white lines, which could ultimately lead to that 3 seconds that we see JST with. But as we're going into 9 and 10 now, the gap opening, closing, it dropped down to around half a second. Leo Lund managed to close up to half a second, but 9 and 10, you see it start to open up a little bit more for the likes of Dowds and Leo Lund. Even Ranelli struggling to try and make some headwind of those corners to gain some time. They more drop it, but gain it back in the DRS zones.
Yeah, they certainly do start to gain it back as this goes on with that DRS. And of course, Leo Lund still within that DRS range. Crucially, in the mid-pack, Claudio Diaz has lost DRS to Tony Hietala, so it's an 8-car fit train at the front of the field. And I think that gap's got to keep extending over Claudio Diaz unless he comes into pit lane. And actually, we see, I think that's Marcel Paps, Tony Hietala, Diaz all come into the pits. And they're now going to be onto a set of the medium size. How far in front does Ryan Bakar come out in relation to these drivers as well? Of course, he was behind Claudio Diaz when he came into pit lane. So is he going to be out in front or still behind the Alpine, as Tony Hietala as well makes his way down the pit lane? And look at that. It is Ryan Bakar ahead of Marcel Paps. So the undercut does work quite nicely. But, of course, he's going to be on 3 lap-old mediums compared to these drivers' 0 lap-old mediums. And it could pay a little bit of a challenge here, Corey, as this race progresses. Because, of course, having only 2 sets of mediums, he's going to need to try to take these as long as he possibly can.
Got to say, Marcel Paps coming out straight behind Ryan Bakar. That is beautiful work from the Kick-Sauber driver. That's exactly where he needed to be so that he can get the DRS and help warm these tyres up, stay away from any threat from behind of Hietala, who came out just lurking hot on the heels. It's Diaz who's a second off, so he's not going to benefit from that DRS. This puts Marcel Paps in a bit more of a comfort zone, knowing that Hietala's not going to be instantly on the attack. So now as we come down the straight, it is Hietala moving out of that dirty air, trying to keep the engine nice and cool, because as we know, as the engine heats up, you actually lose performance, you lose acceleration, and that can prove crucial in races as important as this one. To start your season off with a bang, you want a good round 1.
Yes, you certainly do, as we now see Dowd, Ranieri, and also Alpha Sniper into pit lane alongside Isaac Leet. And these are crucial pit stops now because, of course, here, Corey, Dowd is in that battle for the race lead and Ranieri is in that battle for 3rd place as well against his teammate Leo Lund. So how strong is that undercut? Dowd is ahead of his teammate. So is, of course, Pasquale Ranieri. And what about, of course, Alpha Sniper. He's actually come up behind Marcel Pabst and also Ryan Bakar. So disaster there for the Red Bull, who was in 5th place provisionally. He's now going to drop down. So at the moment, a net P7, unless he can go for a move here. Onto Ryan Bakar. Does look for the move. Onto Ryan Bakar. Forces the V-carb wide. And Tony Hietala says, thank you very much. I'll have a little bit of that. And he also gets pie on the V-carb. So 2 places lost in 1 corner there for Ryan Bakar. Alpha Sniper gains a place back, and for Marcel Pabst, he's managed to find an extra position from when he pitted, and he potentially could see himself past Leo Lund if the McLaren driver elects to stay out any longer. As look how close London's actually got to the back of Jonsos.
This is where things are going to get a little bit dicey. They're going to fight for position, a race into the pit lane, one ahead of the other. Are we going to see Santos in? Yes, we are. Leo Lund's going to go 1 lap longer. Now, this is not uncommon for Leo Lund to try and extend tyres and go as long as possible. So he's really going to test the limits of the soft compounded tyre. Great insight for later on into the season, knowing how long you can really push these softs. You see the back end kicking out there, screaming for grip as they try to lay down the traction. And Leo Lund is going to risk it for 1 more lap with Scott Holmes, Cole Kenny, and Gerino, who we believe is Jerry Van Bussel.
Yes, we certainly do, and crucially here in the battle for that net race lead, Dowds has come out in front of Jontos and a second clear of Gabor Jontos as well. And Ranieri is within DRS range of the Hash driver. Of course, 1 lap difference, so it's not too big of a dire age delta that Jontos has over Cameron Dowds. And that was a crucial undercut there from the Scot, as he's now up into that net race lead. It'll be interesting to see where Leo Lund comes out in all of this, because to think, Ranieri was around about 1.5 seconds behind, potentially a little bit more, on Gabor Jontos. He's come out 8 tenths behind, so in the span of a lap, he's found about 6 to 7 tenths of a second. So for Leo Lund, he might potentially come out the pit lane behind Alpha Sniper and potentially Marcel Paps, but it will certainly be behind his teammate. So let's see if the Swede comes into pit lane this time around.
There it is, dives down into that pit lane. 9 laps completed on the soft compounded tyre. But as you mentioned, Max, this is crucial. Where's he going to come out? He may fall back down the order a lot further than he'd like to be. He was challenging for P2, P1 positions. And now, as he comes down that pit lane and the rest of the grid come barreling down with Cameron Dowds to that start-finish straight, he hits that checkered flag. How close is it going to be? Leo Lund is now about to hit that limiter line. And there go the front 3. Well, where else will he fall behind, or will he slot in just ahead of Alpha Sniper? I think he will just manage to fall just behind his own teammate. Not too much of a loss, but he's got 1.5 seconds to gain if he wants to be back in that fight.
Yes, he does need to have a monstrous next few laps if he wants to stop losing time to his teammate Ranieri. He timed that pit stop to absolute perfection, I feel like, here has the Basler now going around the outside of Claudio Diaz through 4 and into now 6 and 7. He's been able to make his way up into 14th place. It was around the outside through 6 and then on the inside for turn 7. And he says, thank you very much. I'll pick off that position from you, Claudio. And next up on his list will be Ryan Bakar, who's been on those medium tyres for 6 laps. And if how early these drivers are boxed onto the softs here, Corey, is anything to go by, I think we're certainly in for a 2-stop race. So expect these drivers to go onto another set of the medium compounded tyres to the very end of this Grand Prix, as Scott Holmes is able to get past Enzo Sabaton.
Waiting for things to close up once again. This pit stop strategies are not yet complete. From P1 down to P5, as we see Dennis Limerock dive into pit lane, they have yet to swap out those tyres. Kenny has gone 10 laps on those soft compounded tyres, really pushing the limits here. Could we potentially see puncture territory for Kenny? I have seen this happen in a Bahrain race quite a while ago, but in a completely different area of the world. Was nothing to do with the driver you see here on the screen, but it was on lap 9 I saw a puncture in Bahrain. 10 laps completed for Kenny. He's certainly brave, and is he in that puncture territory?
That is certainly going to be the question. How close to that puncturing is Kokeni going to get? And will those tyres puncture? That is the question. And for the Kick Sauber, I think if he's able to extend this maybe another 2 to 3 laps here, Corey, he could potentially do a 1-stop in this race. If he's able to just try and extend it, I reckon he could potentially take those tyres 15 to 16 laps with the less fuel in the track rubbered in. It will be very much a push, but it's something I'm expecting Kokeni to try with a big snap out
puncture!
of 13,
No, he's gone!
And he's off
he's
the
gone!
road. Has it? What tyre? What tyre's gone down?
Rear left.
Oh,
rear
yes,
left is
rear
gone.
left.
That's
Oh.
it. That's it. I called it. I called it.
Oh,
He's gone.
Round. Oh, that's so disappointing for Tamas Kokeni. I think he was trying the 1-stop strategy. It was a Hail Mary attempt. And unfortunately, it's not got his ways. Alu's picked up a 10-second time penalty for speeding into pit lane. And Kokeni, it was a valiant effort here, Corey, wasn't it? We said when would it puncture? And probably around about 30 seconds later, it punctures into turn 13. And for Tamas Kokeni, he's going to fall all the way to the back of this field. And that's probably his race run.
Yeah, he's losing massive time with that. And on go the medium compounded tyre. But now you know you can only go 10 2/3 of a lap on soft compounded tyres in Bahrain.
Yes, you certainly can. Potentially, if you go a little bit slower, you might be able to get him a little bit further around the road. And actually, in all of that, Alu and Raminguez came into pit lane as well here, Corey. SC's still staying out, and they only did 11 laps on their medium compounder tyres. Is that something to say here for the remainder of this race? Is that potentially those mediums can only go around about 12 to 13 laps before they encounter issues of their own? So if you are potentially Ryan Bakar, you might be looking over your shoulder a little bit at a tyre wear meter, because come the end of this race, if he boxes within the next 3 laps, he will just about have enough to go all the way to the end. But you've still got to nurse that tyre, especially what JSC and co, who started on the mediums, were doing. They were just nursing those tyres through that stint. As SD comes into pit lane now, 12 laps on the mediums, it doesn't seem like a long old time. And if the rest have to follow suit, some drivers might be in big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking more towards the likes of Ryan Bakar running 9 laps now. He's only got 3 laps, that's estimated, of use in them, which will put him on the back foot. He's going to have to make these go another lap at least to say 13 and 13, because if he gets to lap 16, which is 3 more laps, he has to push another set of mediums for 13 laps, and these drivers are getting off him lap 11, lap 12. They're not happy with him. So has Bakar made the right call here, really pushing the tyre to the extreme of its limit?
I think he's really just trying to recover something from this race after that one incident. As we saw Leo Lung get past Ranieri, he's up into 3rd place now. Dowd still holding on to that race lead over Gabor Shontos. But I think for Bakar, it really is just to try and recover at least a decent position in this one. It was an unfortunate incident at the top of the hill just before turns 5, 6 and 7. And for Ryan Bakar, he went off the road and fell all the way down to 12th. He's now in 10th place currently. But can he find his way further up through the order on this strategy? That is what we're going to be looking for the remainder of this race, as Shontos is now 3 tenths behind Cameron Dowd. So he's actually gone really wide through the final corner, and that might now unleash a charge from Leo Lund. The Swede might capitalise on the Hungarian's mistake here, Corey.
Well, if there's any chance to do it, now is the right time to do it. Leo Lund is burning all the battery, trying to go for a lunge. He looks for it to the inside, though. Almost gets a foot in the door, still trying to make it side by side, but to no avail for Lund. Santos had that covered well and truly, burning his battery as well as Leo Lund. But I can say that Santos has a lot more battery. He's gone around the outside, though, of Cameron Dowd, so that's interesting stuff.
We had a perfect view of that. Heading on board with Leo Lund. A spectacular move there from Gabor Shontos on Cameron Dowd. Sometimes I say attack is the best form of defence, and that certainly was the case there for Gabor Shontos. Claudio Diaz able to get past Ryan Bakar, and that is also Scott Holmes looking to the inside of the V-car. But he's going to be able to get the traction out of the corner and drag his way around the outside through turn 10 against Bakar. And yes, he is. The Algerian drops down into 13th place. And he is slowly dropping like a stone. You can see 10-lap-old tyres versus 4-lap-old tyres. The 4-lap-old tyres are surely going to win now. Have better grip, better purchase, be able to floor it a lot earlier. But in the space of a lap, after being overtaken here, Corey, that gap between Shontos and Dowd has gone up to 7 tenths of a second. And if Dowd makes a mistake like we saw from Shontos through the final corner, which he doesn't this time around, Lund is certainly in pouncing position. He might even be in pouncing position without making a mistake, because he's half a second behind. If he could get a good run out of turns 1 and 2, he could potentially see himself have a little look into 4.
It's interesting to see Dowds just really concede that position for Santos. Santos sent it around the outside, picking up the position, putting here a decent gap between Leo Lund, who was on an attack, trying to catch up to Santos there. But Cameron Dowds has just been focused on recharging. I think he wanted the DRS. He wanted to just wait it out a little bit and get in a better position rather than be in the lead of the race. And just helps him with his tyre management a bit more. He's not putting too much stress on the tyres, but that hot air coming off the car in front is going to burn away at the rubber and chip it away a little bit more drastically than Santos would be if he was following Cameron Dowds, for example. But for Leo Lund, he's going to have to rethink his strategy and wait for another perfect opportunity to try and go on an attack. He's been also focusing on recharging that battery and preparing himself for his next push and on charging for these positions.
Yes, he certainly is. Lund nearly actually out of DRS now from Cameron Dowds, and that could pay dividends to his race-winning chance if he does drop out of that DRS range. But he's just able to stay with inside 0.8 of a second by the time we reach that detection zone. Also, Lucas Baesner potentially without DRS heading out of the final corner. Will he have DRS down that main straight? Hitala's actually in prime position to get past on Marcel Pabst. Baesner doesn't have DRS. There goes Hitala on Pabst. He's up to 6th place. And there goes Isaac Leet as well, up into 8th himself. And Ryan Bakar was able to only make those tyres for 12 laps. And that's seeming like the limit of this tyre here, Corey, at the moment. 12 laps on the mediums, and then you're done. You can't do really anything more. And that is actually something for Ryan Bakar that's not going to work in his hands, because he's going to have to do 14 laps now on these mediums instead of 13 if he boxed on lap 16.
This is going to be, what a bit of a push. But Enzo Sabaton is also in the same boat. You see him coming, crawling out of that pit lane now, slopped out for some fresh medium compounded tyre. It's also have to going to run the same amount of laps of Ryan Bakar. So tyre management now crucial for these two drivers at the back if they want to finish this Grand Prix. Because as you say, 12 laps and the mediums drivers are done with them. But I reckon you might get another lap or two out of them. It's not like the softs where we've seen Kilkenny blow it out on lap 10. It's all about just managing it a little bit more effectively, and I reckon you could get those 2 extra laps, but not at a competitive race pace.
No, I think if you do, of course, push in the early phase, get the position, and then you start to hold up a trolley train, if you would like to call it, where you just hold everybody up at a DRS train and just try and hold on to a position and go really slow speed, lift and coast, just not really use too much of that tyre as Pabst not able to get past Tyler. I think he's working well here with the Haas driver to make sure they try and catch up to the back of Alpha Sniper, who, of course, Corey, we said about earlier, Alpha Sniper dropped out of DRS range of Ranieri, was about 2 seconds behind by the time he came into pit lane. But all this battling in front of him, all this congesting in front of him, has just allowed him to slowly eke that gap back down. And now we're going to see him potentially go for a move up through the field if he potentially goes for an undercut here as well. So for the Red Bull man, it could be a nice strategy working out for him here.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, we can only hope that he's got the pace to push on and challenge against the McLarens, because this just seems to have been the running order from the start of the race. We've had a couple of swaps. Cameron Dowds led for a little bit. We had Leo Lund leading after pit stops, but we've reset back to the original starting order. Gabor Santos, Cameron Dowds, Leo Lund and Renele, and then Alpha Sniper. And then what has changed is the pack before that. So we had Ryan Bakar have the disastrous start to the race and has just been trying to do anything and everything to pick up some sort of result that isn't at the bottom of the field. Hatala's up into 6th, Pabst in 7th, Isaac Leah in 8th, Baesner in 9th, and Dennis Lamrock in 10th. So I think Lamrock has dropped a couple of positions off his start, but he's yet to swap out and go back to medium tyres. Has opted for an alternate strategy. It was medium, soft, medium, as well as JST going for that medium, soft, medium. So they've still got a lot of running to go. We've still got everybody else to box for some fresh tyres, apart from Atala, who's gone in. Isaac Leah now following suit, and Ryan Bakar and Enzo Sabaton are the ones who are focused more on the tyre management now.
Yeah, it's all about tyre management at this stage for a majority of these drivers. We've got ones that are pushing on like Leo Lund, who of course is 2 laps to the better on Dowds and 1 lap to the better here on Santos. So for the Swede, he might potentially, I think his best bet might be just to make these moves now and try and push off a little bit into the distance and see what he can do on these fresher tyres. Of course, if we go off the status quo, Dowds has only got one more lap after this one left on these medium compounder tyres. Be interesting to see if he does come into pit lane to switch off them or when he's hit that 12th lap, or is he going to go for an extra attempt? So Shontos 7 temps cleared, Leo Lund 3 temps behind on the V-carb, and the McLaren driver is looking very racy indeed, and we might actually see an overtake here, Corey, down into turn 1 as the McLaren's all over the back of the V-carb.
Leo Lund's starting to close up using that DRS, but he's not really burning too much of the battery. He's going to have to wait it out a little bit longer as we see his teammate Pascal Aranella into the pits to swap out for a fresh set of meads. 10 laps for that McLaren as Leo Lund goes 1 lap longer. But as you mentioned, he has got the fresher tyres out of the lot. It's Cameron Dowds who's going to be thinking of pit stop strategies as he's hit that 11 laps completed mark on those medium tyres. He's got this lap, and then he's got to be thinking of going in, or if not, does he have the tyre to go 1 lap longer? He's following Santos, who still has 2 laps in the bank, but Leo Lund is still a looming threat, having the freshest tyres out of the lot.
He certainly is. That big threat is Lund. As Alpha Sniper, that's actually Alejandro Guerrero. He is down in 13th place, came out just behind Tamas Kokeni, and that's not going to do his race any favours if he wanted to try and make this undercut work, because he's now stuck behind the kick Sauber, whereas his rival in front of him, who was in 4th place, Pasquale Ranieri, he's going to be up potentially fighting for that race win on the road. So Ranieri shooting off into the distance, and Loureiro stuck in 13th behind the kick Sauber of Tamas Kokeni. Now here is the big deciding factor. Is 12 laps the limit for these mediums, or are we going to see Cameron Dowds go for potentially one more attempt on this tyre? No, into pit lane he comes. So 12 laps is the limit, it seems. I'm surely expecting Shontos in as well on the next lap, but Lund crucially comes into pit lane and tried an overtake onto Cameron Dowds there.
Oh, well, controversial. Some people may say you can't do that, but what I can say is you absolutely can do that. That is very legal to overtake in the pit lane, and he's going to try it, but that has helped him get right on that rear diffuser on the exit, so we may see these two battle out in the pits for position coming down into turn 1, if not up towards turn number 4, as Leo Lund looks for a lunge, can't find it yet, still trying to find an open door, pulls it back. He's now looking for any sort of line to pull up ahead of Cameron Dowds. These two are going to scrap now all the way to the checkered flag. Leo Lund potentially forced to the outside as Dowds goes for a defensive posture, but Lund's still not able to find a way through just yet.
No, he's certainly not, and this will help Shontos with these guys squabbling, but also crucially as well here, Corey. Pasquale Ranieri was able to get the jump on the pair of them, and he's got Jerry Van Bussel separating himself from those chasing cars behind. Sorry, no, Alou separating himself from the cars behind. And that is going to pay absolutely dividends for at least a couple of laps for Pasquale Ranieri. Like the Aston Martin is in the way between himself and Cameron Dowds. That gap between him and the Scot around about 1.5 seconds as we now make our way through turn 11 and up the hill. Yellow flag in sector 2. That's for Enzo Sabaton, who's unfortunately had a moment himself. And Shontos into pit lane now. Where does he come out in relation to not only Ranieri, Dowds, Lund, Loureiro, Hitala, Leitz, and Kokeni and co, because he's going to come out right in that train, I reckon, because, of course, Lund and Dowds were lucky just to be in front of Loureiro.
Oh, well, I've got to say that Leo Lund has been released. We have Alou into the pits, but we'll keep our eyes on work. Gabor Santos is going to come out. Is he going to keep the lead? It's going to be close with Cameron Dowds. It's a side-by-side into turn 1, but Dowds manages to get ahead, flicking it around turn 2, and Santos is right in the middle of that fight. He's not lost absolutely any time, only lost his position, and he's right back in this fight for the win.
He certainly is. Of course, these guys now need to hunt down Ranieri, who is your net race leader after his undercut attempt. And they certainly are trying to hustle that McLaren down. And what a strategy this could have been from Ranieri if he's able to pick off this race victory. It is certainly all going to come down to the dying embers of this one. And this reminds me of something we saw in the previous titles, F124, where drivers were all so closely matched. And it was somebody who just stroked that little bit too far clear. And everybody else had to try their utmost hardest to just chase them down. And this is what Cameron Dowds is exactly doing. He's 1 second behind. He's now within DRS range of the McLaren. I don't know if the battery levels are similar. It seems like Ranieri's got a little bit more. And if Ranieri's actually got to get DRS here off JSD, this can also help him stay clear of Dowds for another lap or two, because he's going to have that drag reduction system down the main straight. SD, of course, will surely come into pit lane this time around. He does. Ramirez has still stayed out on the road. DRS open for Ranieri, same for Dowds as well, and now this race is well and truly on. Lap 22 of 29. We have, of course, 8 laps to go in this one, and it's going to be all the way to the death.
Oh, eyes on Cameron Dowds as now he tries to close up that gap to Pasquale Ranieri. Ranieri had that little brief boost of DRS down the start-finish straight to help just for that little brief moment before Cameron Dowds is back on the attack, with Santos breathing down his neck, ready to pick up any mistake that Dowds makes, if not any capitalistic opportunity that can come his way from the 2-3 podium position battle, as Aaron Ramirez is yet to box and release these for the checkered flag that is yet to come in 8 laps time. Ranieri now will have to potentially defend against Cameron Dowds, but no, Dowds is at a moment. It's 8/10, and here comes Cabo Santos moving out of that dirty air, but he's not looking for a move or a lunge anytime soon. They're now just playing the patient game, running the laps down, because the final 3 laps are where things are going to come alive.
This certainly is. Ranieri, I think he'll try his best to try and catch up to Ramirez as quickly as he possibly can, but I just don't think he'll catch up by enough to have the Alpine play a part in this story as well. Of course, who is going to pick up this first race victory of the season? And I think as well, Corey, these race victories, they just taste a bit more sweeter because, of course, you didn't get that practice in. You are just purely going off instinct going into the evening, as here's Dowds getting closer to Ranieri, not able to get the move done. It's all just a guessing game of what circuit you're going to get. And if you get a good one that you're good at, a circuit that you enjoy, it just makes you that little bit more fonder, knowing that you are arguably one of the best drivers on the game at that circuit with no preparation. It just makes these wins so much better.
I have a feeling that Aaron Ramirez may be swapping it out for soft tyres if he is to box. If not, do we think he can go the distance? 7 more laps on the medium tyres. At this pace, surely he's going to start dropping positions like a sieve in a few laps' time. If 2 laps' time, he has a 3.4 second gap and just, 6 laps to complete. And he lost half a second in 1 lap. It's potentially doable by half a second, but it's going to be difficult with Ranieri breathing down his neck. Surely he's got a box for softs.
You would think so, and you think he would have pulled that trigger a little bit earlier on, but we have to wait and see. And look how close Santos is to the back of Cameron Dowds. 0.2 of a second, and Dowds is all over the back of Ranieri as well. And on this, that Ramirez has lost about a second to, of course, Pascal Ranieri. So now out of the final corner we go. It's Dowds behind Ranieri. Ramirez comes into the pit lane. Santos, of course, looking to try and go for a move. Loureiro's been able to get past Leo Lund. And there goes Dowds on Ranieri, who's come back over to the racing line and nearly made contact with a Haas driver of Gabor Santos. He's somehow found a gap to stick that Haas. As now, up the hill we go. Into turn 4. It's Santos. He'll be on the outside line. We saw him do this move onto Cameron Dowds. A few laps to go. Lose contact. He rides the curbs. Santos off the road, and that's allowed Leo Lund through. No, it's not. Lund lets him back onto the road nicely, but for Gabor Santos and Ranieri, contact between the pair, and that might have just allowed Cameron Dowds to pick up the race victory here this evening. But still, we have 5 laps to go here under the lights in the Middle East. But for Gabor Santos, I think that might be race victory hopes down the drain.
Absolutely, that was crucial for Santos to follow Cameron Dowds through. He knew it, he took that opportunity, but slight contact between Leo Lund sends him flying off the track. But good sportsmanship from Leo Lund to allow Gabor Santos back on the track, back in front, and has served absolute no attack from then on, has allowed him to resettle his car, get himself back into his rhythm. But now the race will well and truly be back on. The gloves are back off, and it's all every man for himself. Cameron Dowds, crucially, almost breaking a 1 second gap to Pasquale Ranelli, but Ranelli has just managed to pick up the DRS after burning every ounce of battery he had. Cameron Dowds also burning every bit of battery he had to break that gap, and is it enough as we come to turn 1?
Yeah, it's Dowds now in prime position for this race victory. Hitala's coming to pit lane. Kenny has as well. Hitala has retired after picking up a 3-second time penalty. It would have dropped him out of the points, which was really unfortunate to see. He's done a really solid race as well. As actually Santos, I think, go for a move here on Alejandro Lerero, just not able to get the move done. And as we make our way now into the S section, look at that understeer. The dirty air really plaguing the front end. It just washes out on that Haas. And for Cameron Dowds, he's broken that DRS range from Ranieri. He capitalised on the chaos behind, and this might be Dowds picking up his first race victory of the season in the opening round after such a treacherous and horrid season 22, and he might start season 23 in the way he wants it to continue. So for the V-Carp, as he makes his way up the hill, he's clear from Ranieri, but still have 4 more laps to manage as he makes his way through the remainder of this race. I think the real battle here now, Corey, is for that second place as Alejandro Lerrero's run wide, and that might allow Santos to potentially get the run into the final corner and go for a move into turn 1.
But I say, even with that moment for Santos, he's still there in the fray, in the fight for a podium position. So that slight contact has not hindered his chances of at least a good result here in round 1. It's not the victory, not the top spot that he was hoping for, but it could be close enough and get up to P2 if he can stay well and truly in this fight. I think it's well and truly said. Dowds is out of here, a 1.5 seconds clear, and he's bridging a bigger gap, corner after corner. It's Pasquale Ranelli who's been left out hung to dry against Alejandro Lerrero, aka Alpha Sniper, you see on your screen, but Santos just 0.5 seconds back is also in this fight. P2 on the cards for one of 3 drivers, but for Cameron Dowds, P1 is looking ever more prominent to come his way with now what is to be almost a 2-second gap.
Yeah, Dowds is just flying off into the distance here with our first official retirement in-game. And that's of Enzo Sabaton. He's our first proper retirement of the season. That's unfortunate to see there for Enzo. It's just not been a race to remember for him. Let's look at that for Dowds. 2.3 seconds clear now. He's absolutely gone. And the battle between Santos and the railroad will rage on even more. Look at this from Santos. He's a 10 behind, heading into 13. Not able to pick off the move just yet, but he's got such a good exit out of 13. And now as we make our way into the final corner, Lerrero will defend the inside line. Santos potentially just trying to do the up and under, force Lerrero to go a little bit deep on the brakes, get the exit that he truly needs, and he's now going to try and drag race him down into that first corner and get by on the brakes. Ranieri breaks the slipstream in front. Santos just not close enough for the move, or is he? He's going to look to the inside of the pair of them, maybe. He's to the inside of Lerrero, nearly into the side of Pasquale Ranieri, and Santos and Lerrero tussle out of turns 2 and 3 and into 4 with the DRS open for the pair of them. It seems that Santos got the move. Yes, he has. And now Leo Lund's getting involved in this one as well. To the inside of the Red Bull he goes, and he makes his way up into 4th place. Lerrero has lost 2 places in 2 DRS zones, and I think next on the pair of these drivers this will be Pasquale Ranieri, who's unfortunately just not had the pace of Dowds as he's 3 seconds clear, and for Lerrero, a podium has just gone a begging.
Oh no, Lerrero really suffering there from what has been an onslaught attack from Gabor Santos and Leo Lund. Leo Lund saw the opportunity, says, yes, I'll absolutely get involved in that. You leave me an open door and I will take it. We've seen that before. But for Santos now on the push, on the attack, trying to chase down Pasquale Ranelli. The win is out the window. 3.5 seconds from Dowds. Absolute dominance here as he ends off the last 5 laps with just gap after gap after gap, corner after corner. So it's Santos now who's trying to chase down Ranelli, Leo Lund trying to chase down Santos, and Alejandro Lerrero just barely trying to claw back the positions he lost as time starts to slip away from his grasp from these front runners.
Yes, it's all about now if, of course, Loureiro can see himself back through, or is Santos going to be able to get the run onto Ranieri now, who went deep into the first quarter, compromised his run through too, and of course the DRS for the Haas driver up at turn 4 will pay dividends, but I think he's just playing the patience game. He's just going to be waiting for that final lap to get the move done onto Ranieri, who potentially could still pick up a podium in this one ahead of his teammate Leo Lund, even if Santos does get by. It's all just about how these drivers now attack these final 2 laps. Ranieri will be struggling for grip compared to the Haas driver, who stayed out the longest from these front runners on the previous set of the mediums. And now, as we about get halfway through lap 28, it is Dowd who will surely take this race victory, but a battle for second rages on.
So the penultimate lap, the drivers are crucially focusing on getting their batteries to 100%, because the last lap is all-out defence or all-out attack for Ranieri. It's all-out defence for Santos, Lund, Alpha Sniper, aka Loureiro, all-out attack. But Marcel Pabst is also lurking in the wind with Isaac Leah and Dennis Landrock. If they can just get a little bit closer, they could maybe too also be in this battle. Out of the final corner, we go for the second to last time to hit the checkered flag to start the final lap of round 1 here in season 23, and the battle is underway. Santos already all over the rear diffuser. Ranieri side by side, harsh on the brakes as we go into turn 1, side by side, and a lock up from the Haas driver, but can he get the upper hand? He's forced now towards the outside line, and slight contact between the two. Absolute tussle, bumper barging between McLaren and Haas as Ranieri now looks for the outside line. Santos forced into that defensive posture around the outside. Can Ranieri pick up that position once again? No, not just yet. Still side by side as we get going down into sector 2. Not even an inch between the two. The wheels are going to be banging as we get harsh on the brakes into turn 8. There we go. Contact side by side. Leo Lund looking to try and pick up a position, looking for an open door, but they're still going side by side for what has been to almost 2/3 of a lap. Still fighting. Huge contact. Ranieri's round and he's out of the battle. Oh no, Leo Lund is through. Marcel Pabst is through. Alpha Sniper's on the podium, and Santos picks up that P2. Ranieri's going to be absolutely fuming with that, and Leo Lund is now on the attack to try and get past Alpha Sniper, but there's no open door to come his way just yet. Looking to the inside line now into turn 13. Can he pull it off? Pick up the final podium. Alpha Sniper could have seen it in his grasp, but it's not come yet as Leo Lund is through.
Lovely stuff there from Lund, but to the front of the line, he may have got the pole brutally taken away from him in the dying embers, but he dominates the end to this Bahrain Grand Prix. It's Cameron Dowd who wins from Santos, then Lund, and then it's Loureiro just behind Leo Lund. Marcel Pabst, Ranieri after that collision with Gabor Santos on the final lap, but I don't think there was anywhere from Gabor Santos to go, and that was just an unfortunate accident in turn 10. But for Cameron Dowd, he may have dominated qualifying and got it taken away from him at the end, and he's maybe just switched he reversed the roles in the Grand Prix. He did not dominate the early stages, but when he needed to the most, those final couple of laps, he took the race lead and went off into the distance. It's Cameron Dowd, the Scottish man, takes the first victory of the season. Spectacular stuff from the V-Carb. And for Gabor Santos, he will take second, and then Leo Lund in third. It's the podium we were potentially expecting there, Corey, but I think there was a bit more drama between the rest of the field and Santos and Lund than we were particularly maybe fancying for.
Oh yeah, it's unfortunate for Ranieri, an unfortunate racing incident. Hard racing between the two for what was well over half of a lap, and just unfortunate contact has happened. Ranieri pushed out of that podium position, which could have been oh so sweet to take that P2 and fight off what have been your pole sitter. But for Cameron Dowd, a beautiful victory. Set season off with a bang after what wasn't too good of a season for him in season 22. Season 23 certainly off to a big happy smile. Leo Lund finishes off your podium. Alpha Sniper, aka Loureiro, in fourth. Marcel Pabst, Ranieri, Isaac Leah, Dennis Langrock, Scott Holmes, and Aaron Dominguez do your top 10. Ryan Bakar, Jerry Van Bussel, now Claudio Diaz, JST, Tomasz Kokenia, Alu, Tony Atala, Lucas Besner finish off your race finishers, and Enzo Sabaton, the only retirement of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Enzo Sabaton, but it's all Cameron Dowds' party in the desert. Of course, there'll be no champagne on offer. A, because he is underage, I think, and B, because it is a dry country. But of course, he can still drink a little bit of 7 Up if he wants to and start spraying that about his room. But yeah, for Cameron Dowds, it was a torrid season 22. He had his podiums, he had some high moments, but it just never really picked up. It never really started. He couldn't get that ball rolling. But here to start season 23 in the mystery tracks, it just all clicked here this evening, didn't it, Corey? Takes the first race victory of the season, and with that, becomes the championship leader by default.
Absolutely. Now, should we get on with see if anybody wants to have a chat with an interview?
We should. I think we should. Hopefully, I would love to hear from Gabor Jontos, if we can, because he had 2 incidents in that with Pascalo Ranieri. Of course, one a little bit earlier on. I think it was about lap 23 or 24. And then, of course, the one on the final lap as well. Which both of them, he could potentially argue, were not his fault. Of course, on the outside line for both, used every single piece of racetrack he could. And yeah, it just did not work into his favour to try and get some overtakes. We've got Dowds at the waiting room. We're going to quickly see if any other of the other podium finishers are going to be joining us this evening. At the moment, it is still Cameron Dowds. But you know what? We will not wait for the others just yet. I'm excited to hear from Dowds, who had a very difficult season. I want to hear how he's feeling after picking up his first win in a long time. Shall we bring the race winner into the interview room, Corey?
Absolutely. Here we have your race victor, Cameron Dowds, for what was dominance in qualifying for the first 2 runs, but then dethroned at the last second. The major question I have for you, Cameron Dowds, is that last final invalidated run, was that enough to secure pole?
No, it wasn't. I think it was a low 0.1 and Gabor did a high 0. Yeah, it was actually quite a decent lap until the final sector. I just turned in way too early, was in the wrong gear, and then I think that lost me like between a tenth and 2/10. So it wouldn't have been enough for pole anyway, even if I didn't invalidate. But yeah, apart from that, the pace was good in the race. I was on the back foot a little bit in that second medium stint, or the first medium stint, sorry, just because I was on 1 or 2 lap older tires, I think, than Gabor. So when I was trying to follow him, it was quite difficult. And then, well, on the last stint, my life was made quite easy by Pascali doing whatever he did to Gabor, which was obviously unfortunate for Gabor because I'm sure it would have been quite a good fight at the end. But yeah.
No, yeah, there was that brief little moment with Gabor Santos, which allowed you to just absolutely gap the rest of the field while they were all scrapping away, swapping positions. You were just clean and clear-headed, got yourself out of the trouble, and 5.5 seconds, I think I saw it as, when you hit that checkered flag. So a beautiful way to finish off the first round and some much-needed points to get your season off to a beautiful start. Well, congratulations, and that's all I really had was more the qualifying run. Is if you could have maybe got that pole and had a full dominated qualifying, but like I say, he was about a 0.1, and obviously we saw Santos with that 0.77. You said the high zeros and a beautiful lap to what was pole position. But congratulations on the win, and well done on setting your season off to a bang.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything from you, Max?
Yes. A few questions from me, Cameron. Of course, first of all, I just want to know how you feel after that one. You didn't have the greatest of season 22s. You had a few highs, but it just never really got the momentum flowing. Just how good does it feel to start this season off with a race victory?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it feels quite nice. Especially, yeah, it seems to be an occurrence for me where at the start of the season I don't know, I just dropped so many points at the start, it seems, and then I end up getting better towards the end of the season, which is useless, to be quite frank. So it's quite nice to actually get off to a good start for once and be ahead in the championship. and it just makes it quite a lot easier now just to build off of that win and just try and keep the lead and build a nice gap, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully you can. Of course, you mentioned that life got made easy for you in that final stint in the collision between Ranieri and Santos. What was the aim when you saw you came out behind Ranieri? Just maybe just use him as a roadblock between you and the chasing pack behind by getting past him as quickly as possible and then trying to break the DRS while they all squabble behind. Was that the whole game plan to begin with?
Yeah, to be honest, it was. I sort of knew that if I passed Pasquale, then Gabor and the ones behind were going to try and get him immediately after, because obviously it's very important for their race. So I sort of knew in the back of my head that something like that could happen, and it did. I wasn't really expecting a crash to happen like it did, or an incident. I was just kind of expecting them to battle and then for me to be able to gap a little bit. But yeah, I was quite fortunate in the way things happened, and then from then onwards it was just kind of a case of being able to drive away with decent pace.
Yeah, it certainly was indeed. Just of course as well, just talk us through that midpoint of the race too. Of course, it actually no, let me rephrase that. Let me talk us through how the strategy went in a sense. Of course, hard tyres were banned. Did it just make that tyre management a bit more important and make things a little bit more difficult when it came to that overall on-track battles?
I think in that soft stint, it was just kind of about saving the tyres, which the ones behind me were not saving their tyres for the first few laps anyway. It was seemed to be pushing quite hard the whole stint, and then on that first medium stint, again it was just about saving the tyres, and obviously I was older tyres than Gabor and older tyres than Leo, so being in that little sandwich, having Leo behind me, that wasn't the funnest. It was just kind of about trying to keep enough battery and keep a bit of a gap to him. And then on that last stint, I think it was just Gabor that had newer tyres, so it wasn't so bad. And then obviously fortune was on my side and he got shafted. So yeah.
Yeah, it was just a very entertaining race throughout, and congratulations to you, Cameron, on the race victory. And one last question from me. Of course, we don't know the circuit, but will you be racing next week?
Yeah, of course.
Good. That is good to hear. So we'll have the championship leader looking to try and extend his championship lead over the rest of the field in round 2. But I think that's all from us here in the commentary box. Cameron, go and enjoy your evening, and yeah, congratulations on that race victory.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right then, Corey, that seems to be the only interview we are going to be getting today. So I think to round off the stream, we should go through the track pool potentially one more time for next week, and then maybe call it an evening.
Absolutely, I agree with that, because like we say, we normally get excited at this stage where we're like, okay, we'll see you next week at such and such a place, but we can't even do that. We can't even get you ready or excited for what is to come. But what is not to be excited about a random mystery track? You'll find out 5 minutes before the event, and we've seen Bahrain, so you can cross that off. What it could be is Abu Dhabi, Austria, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Brazil, Imola, China, Hungary, Mexico, the mighty Monaco, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Spain, or that sunny Texas, United States. But as we mentioned, Bahrain is well and truly crossed off. You've seen it happen here tonight, but next week could be one of 15 other tracks. You see there are 10 rounds and 16 tracks on the calendar to give you that little bit of a, oh, which one could it be? 6 tracks are not going to get picked, but which 6 is it going to be? I'm excited, and of every mystery season, I always want to see a Monaco race, because I want to see how it will fare for these drivers just being thrown in the deep end. There's Monaco, have a go, let's see who comes out on top. Now, from a commentary perspective, very slow, not a lot of overtakes, but it really unsettles the drivers and can throw spanners into the championship standings, especially as you get going into the start of the season.
Yeah, it certainly does. And of course, with these mystery tracks, of course, we see Cameron Dowds dominate here this evening, do really well. But next week, we could go to, say, Imola. I don't know what circuits Dowds isn't good at, but we could say go to Imola, and he's not on the pace. And then somebody else, like potential Tony Hitala or someone else, go from near the back of the field or in the mid pack to lend to the very top. It's all just going to be constantly chopping and changing as this season progresses. And from one week to the next, we won't know who's going to be in that best position to attack from the very get-go and be at the very top of the time. So we could have potential for different winners each week. It will all come down to who's good at what circuits. So, yeah, this track selection, it is a good one. And yeah, for Monaco, it may be potentially a little bit of a slow one, but it also could be quite interesting and potentially give a driver a shock race victory. You'll never know.
Absolutely. We'll all wait and see to go who's at the top. Is it Dowds again, or will Santos have his win? Maybe even Ryan Bakar will have that better race start and be on that top spot. So mystery season, everything is going to be a mystery. But on that, Max, I think we can close everything down and say good night and see you next week for a track we can't tell you just yet.
Yes, I think we certainly should. So stay safe, stay well, everybody. Thank you all very much for watching, and we shall see you somewhere in the world next week. Make sure to tune in at 8 p.m. at UK time, 9 p.m. Central European time, of course, every Monday, and of course, the same times every Friday for the console tier as well. They have different tracks every week, so they don't even know where they're racing at either. But stay safe, stay well, and we shall see you next time. Thank you, and bye-bye.